We have the pleasure of being joined now by Mr. BASHI, who is the Managing Director of BDC. Thank you very much for joining us.
Excellent. I'm very happy to be here.
I wanted to start by asking you, what in your opinion is, obviously Botswana is in the process of diversifying its economy. What are the sectors that you think the country is now focusing on?
I think there are several sectors. I think the broader strategy, though, however, is to build an export-led economy. So I think that's very, very key. I think, as a market, Botswana is a very small place. We have 2 million people. So building an export-driven economy, I think, becomes something that is paramount and of paramount importance, especially when we want to attract big business to come and set up in Botswana, to create jobs, to stimulate the economy, etc. So I would say that the big sectors are agriculture, manufacturing, tourism is extremely big, and of course manufacturing. So I think those would be the key sectors that I think are being promoted heavily with the right incentives, with the right regulatory environment to ensure that there's really ease of doing business that's unprecedented across those sectors.
And what would you say makes Botswana stand out as an investment destination for these particular areas?
A number of things. I think if you look at the infrastructure across the continent, I think Botswana is so well developed. I think there's nowhere in the country that you can drive and have to go off-road unless you're going into the national park. So I think the infrastructure from a road perspective is excellent. From a rail perspective, it's also very good. Water supply, electricity supply is very, very good. Office space, factory space, the ability to move goods around the country is really world-class. So I think that sets Botswana apart from many, many countries across. Botswana is a very large country, and you can travel from one end to the other, like I said, without going off-road. So big trucks, cars, tourists can all take advantage of that. The second thing that's also interesting is the skills. Botswana has invested since 1966 the largest share of the national budget into education. So you have an educated workforce, not just educated, but also very, very exposed. So a number of people, in fact, a large number of people in Botswana study outside the country. And they all come back with new ideas, fresh ideas, the latest thinking to be able to bring that to the country, to bring innovation, bring diversity, and be able to grow the economy. So I think what really stands out for me is infrastructure and the skills that are available in the country.
I want to come back to the skills sector in just a moment, but before that we were discussing the infrastructure is very robust already in Botswana, but obviously sustainability is a very important part of that. Can you tell us a bit more about how you're diversifying the country away from coal energy towards green energy?
Yes, I think we live in the hottest place in the world. There's no doubt about that. In fact, I think some recent research has shown that the intensity of the sunlight and the sun rays over Botswana are some of the highest in the world. So the potential to generate, super solar energy, I think is absolutely magnificent in Botswana. And that's what's happened. I think the government has been working on a strategy to try to look at the energy mix and add solar to that mix in a very sustainable way. And I think the first project that has been publicly announced by the minister last year was the 100 megawatt renewable energy program. I think this is only the first step in being able to roll out a very sustainable energy mix for the country. So that should be coming on stream now. That will be fully onto the grid, loaded onto the grid, which I think is fantastic. And then the second phase will look at non-grid solar projects across the country, where the idea is to take small remote villages and almost build a contained mini grid for them, all running on renewable energy. So I think that's a magnificent, magnificent start. And I think this is really only the beginning. I think the future for Botswana is completely green, and we hope to be able to leverage the sunshine in Botswana to great advantage.
That's great, fantastic. When looking back at the domestic population, and obviously you have a highly mobile but also educated population, how is that being applied to support Botswana's development? Are sectors like ICT of interest?
Absolutely. Botswana recently developed a national vision called Vision 2036, and that vision has one key component, one BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goal, which is that Botswana will become a high-income country by 2036, which is only, 19 years away. And part of doing that is transforming the economy into a knowledge-based economy. And supporting that is key investments into the education sector, into the ICT sector, into the innovation sector. So if I look at innovation for a second, Botswana has invested billions of pula building a world-class innovation hub. and this will house a number of global IT players, innovation players, ICT players, as well as local players into the hub. And the idea that there will be cross-pollination, and this hub will actually solve problems that are facing Botswana as well as problems across the world by really bringing high-level expertise in the center. So those are investments that are happening. Across in the education sector, the same thing is happening, right? There's a big rollout of iPads and technology and internet across schools. These are public schools across the country, and I know that there's a study ongoing now to look at how we can reframe the curriculum to incorporate elements of the future world of work. So elements around the fourth industrial revolution, nanotechnology, robotics, how do we prepare Botswana students who are young now, who are doing grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, to have the right grounding to be able to play in the fourth industrial revolution. So I think all those innovations are really helping to prepare Botswana to become a knowledge-based economy and to become a high-income economy by 2036.
Absolutely. We've discussed a lot about foreign direct investment going into Botswana, but obviously in your shoes within the BDC, you're also in a great position to be able to invest out of Botswana into new technologies. Can you tell us a little bit more about where BDC is focusing its attention on?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just came back from a mission in San Francisco where I really marveled at what they've managed to do across there. And I think one of the key messages I took there was that I'm not here just to learn, and I'm not here, asking for foreign direct investment back into Botswana, but I'm also bringing a checkbook with me. And I think that was an important message that I think I left with a number of people in Silicon Valley. And we've since then been able to develop some nice partnerships with VC firms and private equity firms there who are working in partnership to be able to do early stage investment into early development tech companies, and that's very exciting for us. So we're going as far afield as America, but closer to home. I think we've concluded a deal in Ghana, which has been very exciting for ourselves. We're looking at Nigeria very aggressively. We're looking at Ghana. We're looking at South Africa. So I think across the African continent, there are a number of opportunities that we're looking at. But again, the question always comes back to, well, why would Botswana fund in those jurisdictions? I think a number of things. The government has an A-rated credit rating from Moody's. My institution, BDC, is also investment grade rated by Moody's. So we can bring really, really optimal capital to projects, even as far afield as Botswana. I think that's very, very exciting. We also can bring the skills around investment, around private equity, around a number of industries to help support our investments as active investors in those businesses. And we've also managed to build a very strong capability around risk management, that many of the projects we go into, we are actually able to work with those teams, those management teams, to build the right risk profile and the right risk mitigation strategies for those companies. So we're confident that we can add value to places like Nigeria and Ghana and Kenya and South Africa by investing as BDC. Yeah. The other thing which is worth mentioning is that we've also gone into some very strong partnerships with multilateral DFIs, including the IDC and more recently the Southern African Development Bank based out of Johannesburg. And that's allowed us to have access to a much bigger balance sheet so that we can invest bigger quantums and bigger sums and fund bigger, more transformational projects. And I think that for me is terribly exciting because that's something that Africa needs, more transformational projects. Yeah.
And your reach from Botswana is something like, is it 300 million people, am I correct in saying that?
Yes,
within
absolutely.
1,500 kilometers or so?
Absolutely, and I think that's really fantastic. And so just within the SADC region, which is the Southern African Community region, we've got 300 customers there. And it's also, by the way, one of the highest kind of per capita GDP zones, right? You look at Botswana, South Africa, Namibia, Mauritius, all those are going up the development curve. So it's also a region that's got incredible buying power. It's a region that's seeing rapid migration into a middle class that's growing. It's a region that's seeing urbanization and the development of new cities and bigger towns across. So I think there's a lot of exciting things happening in SADC. Politically as well, we see the region beginning to open up and integrate more. And I think that's very, very exciting. Because I think for me, certainly within my working years, I hope to be able to see a freer movement of people and a freer movement of goods within the SADC region. And I think that'll be fantastic.
I agree. You're obviously in Dubai at the moment with a delegation from Botswana for the next few days. Can you tell us what you're hoping to achieve out of this particular visit?
Absolutely. I think, overall as a country delegation, I think Botswana is hoping to be able to first of all expose the people of Dubai and the business community here in the UAE to Botswana and who we are and why we're such a great country for people to invest in. I think that's number one. So I think that just that exposure is very, very important. Secondly, we do hope to be able to build a pipeline of companies that want to invest in Botswana, companies that are looking for new markets, looking for new places to set up plants and factories and head offices, to consider Botswana very, very seriously. And then on top of that, myself personally as BDC, I think one of the things that we're looking for is we're in the middle of fundraising at the moment. And so we are looking to raise funds to be able to fund our pipeline that's growing quite significantly. Our pipeline is sitting at well over 10 billion that needs to be funded. And so this international roadshow, I think, is very important to get people to see that there are investable, bankable projects in Botswana, across Africa, and working through a financial institution that is investment graded, like BDC, is a sure way to be able to put your money behind a structure that has good governance, good risk management, good investment professionals that can actually deliver a return that is expected by investors. I think that's really what we want to get out of this visit.